Let's give this a shot here. All right, I think you guys can see that. Yeah, cool. All right, so I did a video on VirtualBox, and that is free, and it's pretty cool for free. It's actually very, it has a lot of features in it that are not bad for free. And then you also have VMware Fusion that is definitely not free, but it has some extra cool little things in it. I don't know if you can do this in Oracle or if you can do this in VirtualBox without maybe downloading a script or something like that to prepare a VMDK or prepare a special installer. But I saw something pretty cool in VMware Fusion, and I'm not sure how long it's been in their program, but you can actually, from the recovery partition on your Mac, you can go ahead and install another virtual machine on your Mac based off of that recovery partition. So I'm going to go ahead and try to do that real quick here, and just kind of show you guys the process of doing that, and we'll see if it works well or not. So as you can see, well, first let me take a step back here. I'm in VMware Fusion right now, and I've just got the trial version right now. I think they're on 8.5. And anyway, open VMware Fusion, click Add, New, and then you'll see here the installation method. So if you had an image of a Mac that you already wanted to use, let's say you had some software installed on there, or you wanted to load up an image from another Mac, you could do that too. But we want to do a clean install. Okay, so we've got the recovery partition on this Mac, so we'll go ahead and select that. Continue, we'll just call it, MacOS 10.12, that's Sierra. Save. All right, so it's spitting out some settings here. I'm pretty sure I'm going to want to customize these because I have no idea what it's doing as far as network, and we're going to want to bridge the Ethernet adapter for sure. So let's go ahead and do that. So I will select Ethernet 0.204. That looks fine. And let's check on, let's see, we may want to give it more than 2 gigs of RAM. I don't know, that seems a little low. I've got 16 on this machine. for something that looks good. So besides that, let's see what this does. Let's see if it works pretty much right out of the box. So we'll go here and start it up. This will be very interesting because if this works, that's pretty painless and pretty easy. That took all of a few seconds to get started. And the cool thing about this is we actually use a lot of images that we push out with FileWave. And FileWave is kind of like, it's like Active Directory for Windows and an imaging server for Windows. Well, I mean, it's not actually for Windows. It's what Apple, in my opinion, is missing as far as that component, group policy and imaging servers, that type of thing. FileWave allows you to basically manage, either, a few systems or thousands of systems that run anything from Android, Windows, MacOS, iOS, Apple TVs. You can manage those. It's pretty sweet. And basically, what I'm thinking here, if this works pretty well, and of course we'll have to try, we'll have to test this out, but if this works well, when we're building the images for pushing out to all the labs and stuff, I'm thinking this would be great to keep our golden images without actually having to have a standalone machine like we're doing right now. And we just sort of reload the image and, make our changes and then capture the image. This would be a heck of a lot faster and easier to manage by a factor of like 10. So this would be pretty fantastic. If it works, we'll see what happens here. If anyone's done this, I'm sure they have, but I've never done this before, so this would be groundbreaking for me. Okay. Still going. All right, that looks promising. Okay. Let's see what it did here. Okay, it's using about 1.5 gigs. Huh. All right. Let's close this. I wonder what would happen if I just restart, if it will actually boot into the operating system. Sometimes I've seen that happen with FileWave. So we'll go ahead and do that. Yeah, restart. Come on. We'll see what happens here. I know that people are running like MacOS. They're getting it to run on Windows 10 and that type of thing, and in virtual environments. That's cool. I know that takes a little bit more, customization and configuration, but I really don't have that problem here. That really wouldn't be anything that I would be interested in doing because we have lots and lots of Apple devices here. So that's definitely not a problem. But I'm wondering what's going on here. This is kind of not working the way that Not working the way that I thought it was going to, that's for sure. Um, hmm. And, okay, here we go. We let's see. It looks like this is going to be the same, the disk utility or the recovery partition. So I think maybe all I have to do is click reinstall Mac OS. Maybe that'll do it. I don't know. I didn't think I would have to do that, but we'll see. This might be one of like the most boring videos that I've ever made because there's so much waiting. Of course, this is the first time I'm doing a live video on this channel, so all right, reinstall Mac OS. Let's see what happens here. Actually, you know what? Disk utility. Okay. So external is actually the real hard drive, as you can see. Actually, no, that's not. 42. So that is a macOS journaled. That looks right. So it actually didn't write anything yet. So that actually could be proof that yes, we need to go here and click on this. And here we go. So it could be as simple as that. Basically, the first time you get to the recovery partition, just click on reinstall Mac OS. So now we're downloading, which shouldn't take too long. We have gigabit internet here, so hopefully that's a pretty quick download. I was actually wondering too if when it did the verification of the device it's running on, I wasn't sure if that would actually pass or not, if it would let it, or if it would see that it's running as a virtual machine. I wonder if Apple is aware of that and they don't care because it's still running on Apple hardware, or if somehow it's oblivious to what's going on. That would be interesting to know. And also how many different installs I could do. If it's using some sort of unique identifier from this Mac host every time I activate or download and reinstall. I wonder if there's like a limit on that, and eventually I would reach this 50 times or 100 times or whatever, and they would say, okay, you're obviously doing something strange, but those are all questions that'll have to get answered for sure. Four minutes. Sorry about that. If I if I knew it was going to take this long, I would have tried to download something faster. Go, go, go. 3 minutes. maybe it's not going to take the full 6 minutes. It doesn't seem like it's going to. So anyway, yeah, back to building images and that type of thing. We like to bake in print drivers, print queues, and default print options in macOS. We have printers with fiery features, and FileWave can push out drivers and queues, but the problem is when you get into trying to configure settings in the print driver, like with fiery features, that's where it gets really sketchy, and we haven't really had any good luck doing that because the MCX reference appears to be dynamic, and it appears to be it'll be like MCX 0 or 1, 2, 3, whatever device it happens to be on that machine. And it seems like since it assigns them dynamically, you can't count on the MCX identifier as being a specific number all the time. It's kind of a most of the time. Maybe the RICO will be MCX 0, but you don't know for 100% certainty that it will be. And that kind of stinks because something that could definitely make it easier for us, we wouldn't have to bake all the features into the image, is sort of not reliable enough for us to count on. So anyway, this would be a step in the right direction until FileWave either figures out how they can fix that, or something else comes along to make it easier to do that. But dealing with multiple virgin machines or gold machines, whatever you want to call them, and saying, well, capture the image from this machine and this will be your known good machine you're going to start with, it gets sort of costly when you have to have multiple machines set up and multiple known good images. It's either costly to try to save time, because then you can have multiple machines set up sort of ready to go, you can do it pretty quickly, or if you only have one or two machines that you're trying to do that on, it becomes time consuming because you're constantly putting a machine in target mode and rewriting an image and then doing whatever, and then you have to worry about where your images are. It becomes a nightmare. It becomes a pretty big headache to manage. So it looks like it's restarting now. So we may be on our way. Come on. It'll also be interesting to see what happens if I install Sierra now, and then when High Sierra comes out, if I try to upgrade, will that upgrade go smoothly, or do you have to do a complete new install? And see, I feel like that's where, when you're doing stuff like this, you run into all kinds of gotchas later. You run into all kinds of, oh, this driver doesn't work, or it freezes, or it becomes laggy because you installed it, on this version and you were doing it this way, and now that you've saved it as a compressed image or whatever, and moved it to another machine, now you're totally screwed. And we actually had a problem for the first time with the new 5K iMacs that we did a whole new lab of. And, installing. Okay, that's a good sign. So we put a whole new lab of 5K machines in, and we were using an image from, known good hardware that had, I think they were from 2015 or something like that. And we never had any problems, creating the images on that hardware. until this new hardware came in. And then all of a sudden, the image would install, but the script that FileWave runs after the install to start configuring and renaming and all that stuff, all the automatic stuff, that script would fail. The computer would restart, and then you would see the recovery partition that we first saw, here when I was first starting this. And there were some really weird error codes coming into the that were getting put into the logs, and so FileWave basically said, try updating your NBI. The NBI is basically what the network boot server throws over to the device to get it started. And we got further when we updated the NBI from the newer hardware, but the image still was acting funny. It wouldn't finish installing, and it was just weird. So what we had to do is actually take one of the brand new machines that was going into the lab, set it aside, and totally rebuild the image on that machine, and then start using the new hardware and capturing the image from that. Once we did that, we had no problems, except on the older equipment, anything that was older than about 3 or 4 years old, which isn't very much, but we still have it floating around. Anything that was past a certain amount of years old, the image would install, and it would look like everything was fine, but again, you would get taken back to the recovery partition, and the script wasn't able to run and rename the machine. But so it's one of those things where, just like I said, when you do this, it's almost kind of but for how long? How long is this going to work? How long will it be before we're looking at having to redo something? So I don't know. It's very interesting. And then you can never really count on Apple to really give a crap about what you have going and how you have things set up and how great it is and how wonderful it is, because they sort of come along and drop the nuke on everything, and it really is sort of devastating, for us, because we have a lot of software vendors and things like that, and they're kind of I don't know what it is with Avid, but apparently they despise Apple for whatever reason. And the sales rep didn't actually say that they hate Apple, but he really was recommending us to, at least in our sound areas and editing labs, he was steering us in the way of PC, which, obviously that'd be cheaper and it would be easier for us to manage, but you're talking about a totally different interface. And the rest of the house is a Mac house. So it really, as far as management, sure, yeah, why not? And quite honestly, as far as performance goes, you pay the Apple tax and you pay all this extra money, and you really, you have a different interface. That's all there is to it. And in things like, Pro Tools or whatever, the interfaces are the same. The keyboard buttons are a little bit different, but the interface is pretty much the same. So there would be a lot of pushback. There would be a lot of people that are like, no, I'm not using a PC. And they would have there are valid concerns with going to PC, don't get me wrong. I don't think the stability is there, at least yet anyway, but it seems like Windows 10 is really pushing more towards what everyone that runs a PC wants, as far as being more locked down, less susceptible to being screwed up all the time with viruses and malware. Not that it doesn't happen, believe me, but Microsoft, I think, did take a step in the right direction as far as trying to improve security, because I think they're looking at Apple and they're saying, most people say that Macs never get viruses, and look at the iPhones and iPads. They always just work. No one's ever worried about getting a virus on their iPhone or their iPad. And meanwhile, in Microsoftville, they couldn't put out a phone that was constantly getting infested with all kinds of craziness. So I think they saw the writing on the wall. Late to the game, but they saw the writing on the wall. And anyway, yeah, this is not going as fast as I thought it was going to go. I'm used to these Linux installs, or pfSense installs on as virtual machines on this hardware, and it just 20 seconds and you're good to go. But this is a different animal for sure. So yeah. 5 more minutes. It might be time for another coffee. I don't know. So we are continuing on. Let me take a look over here. I wonder if VMware Tools has to be installed. I would assume it would, because VMware Fusion knows that this is they know it's a macOS environment. So the fact that option is there tells me that probably do have to install VMware Tools. So probably a good idea to do that right away. They usually recommend, especially on macOS for whatever reason. I don't really know why they say, but they're like, sometimes in some situations they're like, don't even restart the environment, don't restart the VM until you get macOS or until you get VMware Tools installed. So I'll do that right away just to make sure everything plays nice. But this is the thing about this is one feature with paid software. I don't know that with VirtualBox, the open source VM solution, I don't know that you can do this like right out of the box like you can right here, basically point, click, go. But I would assume that if you had a target machine, or even the installer, you should be able to run a conversion and take that image and convert it into like a VMDK or something like that VirtualBox could see. And at that point, you wouldn't even be installing macOS. You would actually just be importing that in as a hard drive, and probably be pretty good to go after that, I would assume. So this progress bar is jumping along pretty quickly, and that's more normal. Keep in mind, this is also broadcasting to YouTube. This is encoding the video. This is running VMware Fusion and installing macOS. So not bad performance, I suppose. United States, US. Don't transfer any information. Don't spy on me. I don't have an Apple ID that I want to use here. Skip. Sure, agree. Continue. Oh. All right, so name. Well, call me user. You're welcome. It's looking pretty good so far. I wonder if I can. There we go. Makes it a little bit bigger for you guys. All right, central. No. Cool. That's not bad at all. That's actually pretty impressive. So install VMware tools. Install. Always have to be secure and ask for the password. We wouldn't want any unauthorized software getting installed on here. So basically for me, like the big upshot to this is that I'll be able to at least try and capture the images on here and use them for, you know, deploying. Now, I can already think of one potential issue here is I just installed VMware tools. Is that going to be a big deal when we're pushing images out to, you know, hundreds of computers? That could be an issue. So we'll have to check on that. I really don't think it would be. I don't see, if it's not running as a virtual machine, what difference does it make? But I don't want any sort of utility running or pop-up or anything like that the users have to deal with. I can just see the calls right now, the trouble tickets coming in. So cool. That's interesting. Okay, so the serial number is definitely not a real serial number. And let's see if there's any software update. Probably not, because it just downloaded the new image. So that's always funny to see. So anyway, that looks that's a little bit different. Now, since it has, I thought it'd be cool to be able to see with like VMware Fusion and even VirtualBox, you can create a virtual machine and actually net boot. So it would be kind of cool to test the net boot server, and, you know, tell VMware Fusion or tell VirtualBox, hey, create a new client or a new VM and then boot off of the network server and just see what happens, just test it out. The problem is FileWave only accepts real Mac serial numbers to identify them. So if I try to do what I just talked about doing and use this serial number, that's, you know, FileWave is not going to accept that number. And that kind of stinks, because if I were to reboot this VM and try to, you know, do a net boot, it's not going to find an associated image. So let's see. You know, but besides that, I don't see anything running here that's talking about like VMware tools is installed and yes, this is a virtual machine. It doesn't really seem like it's doing anything to interfere. So performance seems pretty nice. Let's see. Oh, I'm not sure if you guys can see that or not. I'm gonna make it smaller. So anyway, like, yeah, as far as VMware Fusion being able to use your recovery partition on your Mac to install Mac OS, that seems to work fairly flawlessly. User error at the beginning. That's not a fault of VMware's. Maybe they could have said something, more obvious in the instructions, or a pop-up or something. Or maybe I, as a user, should have just read the instructions instead of just winging it like I did. So anyway, that seems to work just fine. So if you want to do that, that's the easy way. I don't think this is the only way to run macOS as a virtual machine. Actually, I know it's not. We've done it other ways before, but this is the extremely less complicated way, because the other way is literally converting disk images and running scripts and installing tools to make it work, and this was pretty much point and click. So one thing that I'll be doing is not even really configuring this virtual machine, but just trying to save the disk as a compressed image and just pushing it out with FileWave and see if any of the hardware, whether older or newer, can actually boot off of this. Let's see. So I'll go ahead and shut down. Okay. Cool. That worked better than I thought. I guess I'll have to investigate whether VirtualBox can do this and what the steps would be, because I don't really like. And I thought VirtualBox was pretty fantastic for free, actually, and so I don't know if maybe. I don't know if maybe VMware has paid Apple for some sort of access or rights to be able to do this, or if they just have better software developers because it's a paid program and they can afford to do this. I don't know. That would be interesting to find out. So let's see. I'm just going to do a quick I mean, I don't think. Let's see. I guess I should do it on here so you guys can see. Virtual box macOS install. So let's see. Well, here's an article. Okay, but see, this is actually using like a custom. Someone else has taken the image and customized it, which, I mean, that seems a little sketchy to me. Not just for legal reasons, but for deployment to a network reason. That seems a little odd. Oh, but they're talking about running this on Windows 7, Windows 8. And 10, so yeah. That would be interesting to do. I mean, here's the thing. If you're if you're trying to install, Mac OS and you're doing anything like important, you probably already have like a real Mac. You're not going to try to support Mac OS and create images to push out from Windows hardware. I can almost guarantee that you're going to run into problems later. And the last thing you want is an image that's been created this way, getting pushed out to a few hundred machines, and then Apple changes something with activation, or they flip the switch, and all of a sudden you have 200 very unhappy users because you decided to, try to cheat the system or customize something. I don't know. There's a time and a place. So if you're going to install this and use it at home, go for it. If you want to put Mac OS on your Windows 10 box at home, or maybe in a test environment at work, yeah, that's fine, as long as it's not illegal. But this stuff right here, that's where you're kind of like, okay, I'm modifying this, so how does this scale? What does this mean for me if either hardware changes or Apple changes something? You don't want to be standing around, scratching your head and someone come in and say, what happened? And you're like, well, I built this image on Windows 10 and I ran all this, I ran all these commands and tried to, customize it, and I don't know what happened. Probably not going to work out too well for you. But yeah, sure, why not? Give it a try. See what the boot time is after it's loaded up. It's been booted once. Oh, this would be fun. What would happen? What would happen if create a full clone? Okay. So we'll let this thing power up, and then we'll create a full clone, and we'll see what happens. There we go. All right, shut down. Whoop. Control. Okay. Create a full clone. This would be beautiful, because then I don't have to worry about reinstalling the operating system every time I want to make another known good image. I can just clone this over and over again. Basically what I would do, if this works, basically what I would do is, keep the golden image that's not touched at all, and then just keep cloning it and then modify the clones. So let's see what happens here. And see, this is where I'm like, how many clones can I do, and how many times is it going to check for an activation? How many times is Apple getting notified that a copy has been activated or registered, whatever Apple's doing? Okay. That message is basically letting me know, look, you have two virtual machines running, and they're both linked to certain hardware, like the CD-ROM or the DVD drive, which actually this machine doesn't have a DVD drive, so that's kind of funny. But anyway, so it's basically saying, look, one of the other virtual machines may be using some hardware, so it may be inaccessible to another virtual machine, because you can't really you can't link or connect two virtual machines to the same hardware device. But I mean, such as a CD-ROM or DVD drive. Obviously, networking and everything should work. I mean, is it getting a different MAC address? Like, what's going on here? When you clone it, how exact is the clone? So that's a good question. Let's go check that out. Log into this one. And then we'll go to system preferences, network, go here. Advanced. Hardware. Okay, so it is smart enough to say, oh, the MAC address needs to be different. That's pretty cool. So what that means is that they actually do have different IP addresses on this test network. That's very interesting. So now I have two. Now I have two virtual machines running here. And encoding. I'll tell you what, let's go here, shut this one down. Come on. Shut down. Clone of clone. Sure, why not? As you can see, this is much faster. This is really, really cool. And so, just like that, it's ready to go. It's ready to boot up. Create full clone. Clone of clone of clone. And we'll see how many we can boot at once. The stream is probably just going to die out at some point. It's just, you'll be watching and it's just going to stop. So let's do this. Boot up this one, boot up this one, and boot up this one. So, you know, essentially, or basically we have 5 versions or 5 computers running on one. We have the original host and then 4 VMs on top of that. So, and we're streaming, and this computer is doing all the heavy lifting of encoding this stream to YouTube. So, like I said, this stream may just stop working altogether. Wow. What would be really interesting is if I tried in one of these virtual machines to create another stream. I'm not crazy enough to do that, but. And so these all should have virtual VMware tools installed because I did that in the original. Well, there you have it. There's definitely no. It even cloned the last menu that I had open. It's cloned that I had system preferences opened up. That's pretty funny. So when they say clone, they mean real clone, except for MAC address. There's got to be different serial numbers or something too. Uh-oh. Where'd my mouse go? My mouse got lost in one of the other virtual machines, I guess. So, this one's not working. I think this one may have frozen up. And when I click into this one, it doesn't, I don't get a mouse anywhere. Oh, there it is. Cool. Yeah, awesome. I know this looks really stupid. It's like, why would you need this many virtual machines running at the same time of the same operating system? How crazy are you? But this will come in extremely handy. Okay, so I resized this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, here they all are right here. Should change the background color on them so we can see the difference, but you get the point. You get that it can be done. It's not a big deal. And you know, actually, like I said, it's running 4 VMs and the host, and it's encoding this stream. So pretty, you know, pretty impressive. It's pretty cool. So they all would have 40 gigs. All right. Now it's time to get to work. Now it's time to actually start building these and seeing if we can push them out, which would be pretty cool. Yeah, that's it. It's time to get to work. Let's see. Let's see. Suspend. I started getting a notification on YouTube. It says that the video output is low. I wonder why. It says the stream's current bitrate is lower than the recommended bitrate. We recommend you use a stream bitrate of 4500K. And it was down to 2707. So I have a feeling that was probably because too many virtual machines were running. But hey. All right, let's see if that clears up the problem. Sorry about that. Stream health. Oops. And come on. I'm just curious if this is going to improve or not. It should. What's going on here? Come on. Well, whatever. All right. Have a good night.